What's up, YouTube? It's TF Collector, and today I'll be reviewing the Transformers Age of the Primes Leader Class, the 13 ONYX Prime. And before we go ahead and take a look at the figure, we will first, of course, take a look at the packaging that he does come in. So raising the camera up a little bit here, you can see on the front you have ONYX Prime along with Dust. You have ONYX Prime in Robot and Centurion modes. Age of the Primes, ONYX Prime, Hasbro. Over here you got your steps on this side. A nice picture of ONYX Prime in his little beast mode there. Age of the Primes. On the other side you have the Primes till all are one leader class. On the back of the packaging you have his name, you have some awesome product shots, and there is your weapon that we will talk more about in a minute. The authentic Hasbro logos there on the top, ONYX Prime on the bottom, a barcode, and that is it for the package. And one last thing before diving into the figure, he does of course include his instruction manual. As you can see, there is a picture of ONYX Prime, there's his name, Age of the Primes 8 and up, and all your steps, and that is it for the instructions. And now moving to the figure itself, here is the very awesome Leader Class ONYX Prime in his first of 4 different modes that you can get this guy into. So I'm going to try to run through each mode decently fast while also covering everything you need to know about them. But first we have him here in this beast mode, and coming in close on the details, you can see you have some nice silver fangs here on the front with the red on the eyes and some nice gold. I do like the color of like brownish, almost tan they used on him. Really gives him that old Prime look, just an older character, not with the poppy reds and blues, but just coming through here. You can see more gold, more of that brownish tan color. The hands and the edge of the feet back here are done in black, but overall looks pretty cool. Not much to complain about here in beast mode. And for some articulation, I suppose, here in beast mode, most of this will carry over to the other modes, but the head can rotate side to side on a ball joint. It can also look down, and the mouth can open and close. These back limbs can do a full 360. They can move in and out. You do have a swivel right there, along with a bend there that will be your elbow bend later. And the what will become wrist can rotate, along with what will become his hand can open and close. And this piece here can also move in and out to accommodate that shoulder movement. The back legs can also rotate around a full 360, even though you do kind of have to do some weird maneuvering to get that to happen. You do have swivel there. Now you do have a hinge here and here, but it's more for later modes, so we'll cover that later. You kind of want it to look like this here in this mode, but you do have a pivot there at the ankle, and overall some good articulation back there, but you do have a little more up top. You can move the wings up and down slightly, along with forward and back slightly, and they can open and close. So overall, as you can see, he can move quite well. And going ahead and taking a look at the accessories that ONYX comes with. First, you get this spear slash staff, and if you break it in half, this is Hasbro's new version of what is called the Triptych Mask, which is the relic that you get here with ONYX. So you can see some nice gold done there, and right down there you have the ONYX Prime logo, but that is your little Triptych Mask there, and you also get his tail, which can double as a bow later on, but we'll take a look at that later. For now, if you want to complete his look here in beast mode, you will want to open this panel here, and you can see there's a little slot up in there. Tab right there. Just tab that right up in there and close that down, and that will complete his look there. And as for storage with this piece, what you can do is splitting this in half, tabbing it together, and just plugging it in right there. That is the way that I find to be more satisfying, more looking better, if I can use English, and it actually works, unlike the one on the wing. I can't get that one to stay. This one actually works, so that's the one I'm going to stick with for my storage. Here is ONYX's alt mode number 1 with the other primes that we have so far, and they look awesome. And with all that being said, I do think ONYX looks pretty good here in his beast mode, but we can make him a 6-legged beast if we want, so let's go ahead and transform him into that. So the first thing I like to do is just get these wings up and out of the way, and what we're going to do is come down in here and untab these feet here, and basically extend these all the way upward. Do the same thing here, untab that, extend all the way upward, excuse me. Then you're going to use this hinge and bring these pieces inward, like so. Do the same thing here. Bring this one inward, maybe. If it will cooperate with me, please. There we go. Bring that one inward. And then what you're going to want to do is rotate so that the elbows are once again facing forward in the proper way. So now what we're going to want to do is I'm going to show you this from a side angle. Bring this piece out, rotate it, and you're going to want to make sure this top piece rotates with it as well so that hinge is able to face downward. And then you're just going to bring that down, and you can kind of give him a little bit of a chicken leg look there with that leg. And same thing here on the other side. Bring that out, kind of grab up here so that this back section rotates as well. Rotate, bring that leg down, give him that sort of chicken leg look there, and then you can bring his wings back down. And you do kind of have to play around and get all the legs oriented in a proper way. As you can see, you kind of have to bend some stuff back and forth and just play around with it. You can kind of have him doing the splits. I'll fix that in between shots. But for now, that is how he looks in his six-legged beast mode. And yes, I must say, out of the 4 modes, I think the six-legged beast is my least favorite, but it's still a pretty cool looking mode, which should speak to how good this figure truly is. As far as details go, it's the same. You've seen it all. One little difference is a little bit of articulation here. You can move this leg in and out. As I showed already, you can spin it a full 360. You also have a hinge below right there, and you have 2 hinges forming this little chicken leg, and you also have a little bit of movement there at the bottom toe. But overall, it's the same as the first beast mode. You just have 2 extra legs, so not a whole lot to say about this one. Here is ONYX's alt mode number 2 with the other 13 primes that we have so far, and once again looking amazing. But that's about all to say here for the six-legged beast mode, and now let's transform him into my personal favorite of the 4 modes that we have, and that is his Centurion mode. So to do that, first we're just gonna remove this section back here, place it off to the side, close that up, and we can get started. So the first thing I want to do is I just close these wings up. You don't have to, but I think it gives better clearance. Come here, just bring that dragon head back, and that will help us get to our good start. So the first thing we're going to want to do is come here, and basically this whole section is going to rotate upward, as you can see, and that is how you're going to want that sitting. You can then bring that little crotch piece down there, and we can do the last few steps of what is a pretty simple transformation. Just bring these arms back to where they were earlier and straighten them out so everything is oriented properly. You can close those hands up a little bit now since he doesn't need to be balancing on them anymore. Do the same thing over here. Just straighten everything out so the elbow is facing forward, hand is facing forward. You can close that hand up a little if you wish. Now what we need to do is just position all these 4 legs so that he can stand up straight, which can be a little bit of a hassle to do sometimes. I will say one of my least favorite parts of this figure is trying to get him to balance in these different modes on all of his legs, because he has so many legs in most of his modes that it is pretty hard to get him to balance. But finishing up here, you're just going to want to bring this piece downward, and then you can bring the head up, and you do want to leave this little mask over his faceplate for this mode. And then what we can do is just bring these sections forward and flare them open like so, and like so, and there we are. That is ONYX and his very unique and very cool looking Centurion mode. And yes, this is certainly my favorite of the 4 modes just because of its uniqueness. Coming in close, so you can see that head sculpt there, kind of like a falcon there over his head. You can see the little beak there and the red eyes. Looks pretty cool though. The chest plate has some silver and gold there, some more silver there on the crotch plate. Of course, we've already seen these legs in other modes. Now you can see his arms fully extended, so you can see what that's looking like. And he also has the big wings flared out behind him. As far as the side profile goes, you can see that dragon head kind of just hangs out back there. But other than that, it looks pretty clean, and overall just a really cool looking mode here. And yes, we do get some new articulation. Of course, the legs are the same, the wings are the same, but we can now move these front legs that are now arms instead a little differently. So you get a full 360 there, in and out. You can move them in and out on a butterfly-like joint. You, of course, get your elbow bend to about 90 degrees there. Rotation, rotation, hand opens and closes as previously mentioned in other modes. Overall, not a big change in the articulation, but it is nice that he now has 2 arms instead of all legs, so you can get some more dynamic posing going on. And if we bring the 2 accessories back in, this is also the mode where you get the coolest little feature out of these accessories. First of all, you're going to want to split this tail here in half and open it up, which can be a little hard to do. You kind of just have to get your fingernail down in there and split it and open it up like so. And as you can see, that is going to be a bow, and then you can bring this piece in, which is going to act as an arrow, and you do want this point here opposite and perpendicular to your little tabs, so that when you tab all this together, it's going to look very, very nice. But you can tab it in right here like so. Just tab that right in, and as you can see, that looks more like a bow. I guess you can also have it this way, but to me that doesn't look as much like a bow as that does. And for him to hold this, you're basically just going to use that tab, open up his hand, and as you can see, there is a little slot inside of his hand, and you're just going to tab that right in. And now posing him with this can be a little difficult, so I usually just throw it over his shoulder like that, and as you can see, that is a pretty sick looking accessory. Here is alt mode number 3 with the other 13 primes that we have thus far. And for one last comparison, here is ONYX with how he appears in the Covenant of Primus, so you can see how he looks with what they were basing this mode off of. And overall, I think he does do a great job of giving a modern, awesome, but also sort of accurate to the source material version of ONYX Prime. And with all that being said about the Centurion mode, it is time to transform him into what is my second favorite of the 4 modes, and that is his normal robot mode. So to get started going into that, this is the probably longest transformation of the 4. But the first thing I like to do is just come up here and go ahead and flip his faceplate down to just get a hold of this helmet section, and you should hear it swoop right into place, and there you go, his head is now visible. Now what we can do is come here and just go ahead and start to get all of this basically opened up, so you can bring this up, and I find it to be easier if you untab this section just slightly, and then of course we are just going to rotate all of this back upwards so he is upright like so, and we can tab that chest plate right back in how it was and bring that crotch plate right down. Now there isn't really any way of holding this into place until we tab these back legs in, so that is what we're going to do first. So just bring these pieces forward once again on those butterfly hinges, and we are going to basically fold these legs over top, and I'll show you how to do that, of course. So the first thing we're going to want to do is straighten them out completely, and then make sure that this hinge here is facing upward, and as you can see, it's facing out right now, so we want it to face up. So we need to grab this and rotate it a little bit more. So you can see, you want to be able to see that hinge facing you through this little gap here. And basically now what we're going to do is bring this leg up on that hinge, and as you can see, there's a little cutout right there, and that little piece right there is going to go right into that cutout. So as you can see, that is how you're going to want that looking. Then what you can do is bring this arm back to its original position like so, and using these 2 double hinges, you're going to bring this foot over, and there is a little cut out there that will go into that little tab sticking out there. So basically just bring that all the way over top of that shoulder and tab that right in, and that's how you want that to look. I'm going to go a little faster on the other side, but you're basically just doing the same process. Straighten everything out, make sure that hinge is facing upward, line that up with that little groove there, bring this to its original position, and then use that double hinge there to get that foot over top of the shoulder, and use that tab to tab it right in there. Make sure everything is tabbed in securely, and that is how you're going to want the chest section looking for robot mode. As for the legs, we can straighten them out, and he still wants to have the chicken leg look, but we can straighten them out a little bit more like that, so he is a little taller. And then he does have heel spurs under here for robot mode, so just get a hold of those with your nail and bring those back. And the same thing on the other side, of course. Just straighten that out a little. Still give him the chicken leg look though, and get your nail under there to flip the heel spur out. It will thoop into place like so, and that's how you want the legs looking. And now I need to bring the camera up because he has... And as I was saying before I was so rudely interrupted by my iPhone storage warning, bring these wings back a click and just angle them upward slightly. And there you go. There is ONYX in his absolutely awesome looking robot mode. And once you get him up in robot mode, ONYX Prime looks pretty freaking cool. But coming in close, taking a look at that new faceplate that we did reveal coming into this robot mode. As you can see, more red eyes with a nice silver faceplate with some little teeth there at the bottom on his chin. The rest of the bot we've pretty much already seen. You get a better shot of the crotch plate there with some silver and whatnot, silver on the knees. Overall, just a whole bunch of stuff we've already seen in the other modes. You have your wings folded up here on the back. Of course, the dragon slash beast looking head just hanging out back there, which is a little bit of an eyesore, but it doesn't hang out any further than the wings, so it's not going to hold you back any posing or shelf space. So overall, a great looking robot mode for ONYX. And when it comes to articulation, there is quite a bit to cover. The head can rotate side to side, not quite a full 360 though, unless you really squeeze it around just due to those legs, but you can squeeze it around if you want to. The head can look up pretty high due to transformation down, not really, and you do have a little wiggle waggle to the sides each way. The arms can do a full 360. They can move in and out. Due to transformation, you no longer have that butterfly joint to use, so you can't get any butterfly movement, unfortunately. You do have a rotation there at the bicep, along with about 90 degrees of bend at the elbow. You have wrist rotation, hands can open and close. Most of this is stuff we've already seen, but I figure I'll show it again anyways. You have a waist rotation, which is very nice, and that crotch plate does move up to accommodate that. The legs can kick forward that far, backward that far, outward. You can get a full split plus some. You do have rotation there at the thigh, and you do have your two joints here at the leg. This one can't really go back though. You can only really bring that one forward, but you do have some choices with how you can have him standing. And when it comes to the feet, they cannot move up and down, but they can pivot inwards, and they do not rotate. But still, overall, some pretty good articulation here on ONYX Prime. And upon further investigation of the instruction manual, I've realized there is a way to fix this beast head sticking out so far. Basically, all you need to do is use the hinge, bend it back, and those two horns will go into those two grooves right there. And as you can see, much more flush, much nicer, and just gives the figure an overall better aesthetic. And if we bring back in ONYX's accessories, these can be used here in robot mode. For the tail, we're just going to plug it into his hind end pretty much. So just plug it in right there and close that piece on top of it. And that's how you want that to look. And as for, whoa, stand up straight. As for the triptych mask, basically you want to rotate it to where the tabs are now facing the same way as this piece, and this tab will once again just plug into his hand. So just open that hand up and you will just plug that right in there. Close it up the best you can, and there you go. There is ONYX all armed up in robot mode. And for some robot mode comparisons, first here is ONYX with the rest of the 13 primes that we have thus far, and this team is shaping up to look pretty awesome. Can't wait to get the remainders of the primes very soon, and I think this will be the definitive version of the 13 primes that we will ever possibly get in toy form. Just for a sense of scale, here is ONYX with Studio Series 86 Commander Optimus, so you can see just how big he is here as a leader class with a commander. And last but not least, once again, here he is with a CG image of how he appeared in the Covenant of Primus, which is what Hasbro mostly based this toy design off of, and as you can see, they did a great job giving us a toy rendition of this character. So this has been my review for the Transformers Age of the Primes Leader Class, the 13 ONYX Prime. And overall, this is another great entry into the Age of the Primes line. All of these Primes so far have been very solid, and I've enjoyed each of them in their own way. And this guy is one of my favorites thus far. I think that each mode looks pretty good. I do prefer some over others, but I think they all have their specialties and all would look great on a shelf. Articulation wise, he is very well articulated all around. The details, the paintwork looks good. Everything overall looks good. The design is awesome. And this actually feels like a leader class figure. This feels like you're getting your $55 worth, which is what this guy retails for. And I am very happy about that. Now, as far as the future of these reviews go, we have some more Age of the Primes figures to take a look at, along with the January 2026 wave of Studio Series now showing up at my door. So we will be taking a look at all of that very soon, and I hope everyone is looking forward and staying tuned for those reviews. Now, if I had to rate ONYX on a scale of 1 to 10, I think he is a very solid figure. I do have a few minor gripes. I don't like the way he holds the accessories with the tab and slot in the fingers there. I don't think that looks great in some poses. Some other little nitpicks, I guess, could be the fact that his ankles don't rock they do rock, they have ankle pivot, but they don't spin side to side, so that does make up a little bit less of some posing value, but also still a pretty good posable figure. And one other little nitpick is some of my joints are slightly loose, but those can always be tightened with some nail polish or anything else that you have at your disposal that can do some tightening of some little old hinges. But that is about all I have to say for ONYX. His rating, once again, I started to act like I was going to rate him, and I never did. How dare I? I'm going to give him a solid 9.5 out of 10. Think he's a great figure. Certainly recommend him, and he is one of my favorite Primes thus far. Right behind Megatronus, he still holds the grail for my favorite. But that is about all I have to say for ONYX. Don't forget, never sacrifice the things you love for the approval of others. I will see you all very soon with more reviews, and until then, roll out. Peace.